Thank you again for joining us this afternoon for our second town hall of the week. Today's Thursday, April 23rd. Excited to once again be presenting to you with these virtual town halls from the Department of Labor. Today's town hall is going to be focused on our PUA program for self-employed, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and others who were not previously eligible for unemployment. Obviously, that program went live yesterday evening, so we were excited to be releasing that in its first, one of the first states in the country to do that. So we were excited to be able to get that up for Vermonters to be able to start filing. So I know we have a lot of questions coming in about some of the issues that folks are having, so we can definitely talk to those. But before we get into that, I do want to say a lot of information is on our website at labor.vermont.gov, and we'll be going through the information on PUA and other applications that is available currently, and for you all to just go check out. And we'll be continuing to update that content in the coming days as we have it available. As always, this town hall is being recorded. and will be posted through our YouTube channel and on our website. I know today we have with us the Unemployment Insurance Division lead, Cameron Wood, and I believe Interim Commissioner Mike Harrington will be joining us as well if he'd like to. And so I think first what we'll do is we will send it to Commissioner Harrington just for a quick update from his perspective on the PUA program. So Mike, I'll send it over to you.
Great, thanks, Kyle. Thank you, everybody, for joining. The hope in doing these town hall meetings is that we can give you as much information as needed around the program, specifically around self-employed independent contractors and others who are not eligible for typical UI. This program did go live yesterday, so we are still working through some of the kinks and hurdles and ironing out the details, but it is there. We've had more than 6,000 people already apply for this program, which I think is great. We will continue to put out information and guidance for people on how to navigate this program. And we also have a hotline ready for people to use to be able to call if they need assistance. Again, this means that the department will receive more claims. I think the good news is that the department will receive more claims from people who are not traditionally eligible. So that means that more people are being afforded the opportunity to receive benefits during this crisis. So with that, I will turn it back to Kyle and Cameron, but just say thank you for bearing with us. We did build and had others build this program from scratch. No state had this program up and ready to go. And I think we're in line with what other states are doing to get this live. I know Massachusetts, their system went live this week as well to the public. And so while I know it has been a long time coming, I just appreciate the patience and working with us. We will continue to work and improve not only the service we're giving the public, but also ensuring that this system is meeting people's needs. And we continue to work on that even as we speak. So again, thank you. And I think Cameron will be able to talk in more detail about how to navigate the program, the types of questions we're going to be asking for, and how we'll be making determinations with our program.
Great, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. I think from our perspective, like Mike said, we are excited to have this program up and live for folks to file. But like he said, we do understand that there are, with it being such a new program, we do understand that there are still issues. But Cam, I think from your perspective, if you could just provide, similarly to earlier this week, just an overview of the program and really what individuals who may have previously not been eligible, what should their next steps be? Really now that this program is live, what should what are the next steps and the actions that they can take right now to go through the program?
Sure, Kyle. I'll start by echoing comments from the commissioner. We appreciate everyone's patience as we started, over a month ago through this journey with the pandemic. We've been trying to assist people as quickly as possible, and we had to build this program from scratch, as the commissioner mentioned, and we're excited to be able to go live with it this week and to be able to begin to provide benefits to those individuals who are not eligible for regular unemployment insurance benefits. As the commissioner mentioned, with the program going live yesterday, we have already received over 6,000 applicants who've been able to successfully submit their application and move forward. So I'll start with a brief overview of how the program works, and then some of the populations that we're seeing right now and how we're trying to funnel them through the system. So for pandemic unemployment assistance, It is a program which is modeled on regular UI, regular unemployment insurance, but it is designed for individuals who are not eligible for regular unemployment insurance benefits. So this would be individuals who are self-employed, independent contractors, but also individuals who are not monetarily eligible for regular unemployment insurance, and they will also be eligible for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to start with the largest population we could, the self-employed and the independent contractors. And within that, we had two kind of subsets of populations. We had the individuals who had already filed a UI claim and likely been given a denial, a monetary denial, because they don't have wages in our system, because they don't report those wages to us. For those individuals that we were able to easily identify in our system as having filled out a UI application, we have sent them an email. Last night, we sent an email to approximately 10,000 individuals, notifying them that they could now go into the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance application and finish their claim. They would need to answer some additional questions that the department needs to determine eligibility. And we've seen a lot of those individuals already going in through that link that was provided and filling out both their initial application and the weekly claims. So again, if you had already submitted a UI claim, a UI initial application, we would have sent you an email if we were able to identify you as potentially PUA eligible, and you should be able to go in and file through that link. Now, we were not able to readily identify all of those people, and that's where we're shifting to now. Keep in mind the program has only been up for a day, so if you have not yet received an email, but you have already filed a UI application, we will be in touch with you as quickly as we can when we're able to identify the additional people that have already submitted UI. So if you haven't received an email, that's okay. Be patient a little bit longer. In the next day or so, we will finish identifying these people and getting them emails, letting them know that they can get into the PUA application. For the people who have not yet filed an unemployment insurance claim, for those individuals, they can go in on the department's website, go to file an initial UI claim, because we need to capture your UI information to make sure you're not eligible for regular unemployment insurance benefits. When you fill out that application, if you have checked the box as self-employed or independent contractor, when you get to the confirmation page, it will tell you, based on your answers, it indicates that you may be eligible for the PUA program. Click this link, continue to fill out your initial PUA application. So for people who haven't yet filed, you go in, you start from the beginning, and you get to the confirmation page. It will identify you as PUA eligible, and it will shift you into that application, and you can finish your application there. So those are kind of the two large segments of the population we're trying to address. For the individuals who are not self-employed, but may not be monetarily eligible for regular UI benefits because they don't have enough wages in the system, they're part-time workers, etc. We are doing the best we can as quickly as we can to capture that information so we can move you into the PUA application. So we're not there yet with having everybody eligible to move into PUA, but we have captured a very large segment of individuals who've already filed, and we're moving them into the program. And it's just a matter of beginning to expand upon that and include some of these other folks. So if you have already, I'll express this again, if you've already filed a UI application, within the past month, and you have not yet received an email from the Department of Labor identifying you as PUA eligible and moving you into that application, we are continuing to capture those people in our system, pulling them out and sending them that communication. So just be monitoring your emails, because we will be expanding upon this population on a daily basis. So as soon as you get an email from the department, you will then be able to go into the PUA application You will finish filing your initial claim, and it will have you create a username and password, and then using that username and password, you go in afterwards and fill out your weekly certification so we can get you benefits as quickly as possible. Kyle, I hope that answered your question, and happy to expand upon that as we move forward with the town hall today.
That's great, Cam. Thank you. I think what I'm going to do real quick, just as folks have been posting questions in the chat feature, so I've been trying to go through and add those as best I can. I just want to take a couple minutes just to kind of show the website and where the information is located at labor.vermont.gov. We are, as I said earlier, we are continuing to update with more resources and more information, but I just wanted to take a minute just to show where folks can go. So first and foremost, you'll see when you come to the page, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, Apply Now. That's going to bring you to the labor.vermont.gov/PUA. So that's going to be the main website that we will use going forward for updates, information, and resources. If, as Cam said, there's two sets of individuals. If you have not yet applied for benefits or you've already applied for benefits, for individuals that have not yet applied, they can go right to the link and fill out the information. We've also provided a video through our YouTube channel with a demonstration of how to complete the application, both from initial and for the PUA application as well. That would be helpful as well for those who have already applied for benefits. So if you are having some issues with the application itself, I would ask you to check out that video first. Now, I don't think that will address a lot of the questions that we've received, in particular the Social Security number if you've applied, but I would suggest that you go check out that video just for some further clarification on some items. As I said, we are providing more resources as we get them. First and foremost, we do have the link. If you think you might be eligible, I would encourage you to check out our checklist just to be able to see if you might be eligible. And that, again, that is all through the labor.vermont.gov/PUA. And then in regard to filing a weekly claim, once for going forward, that is also on the website. But Cam, kind of just shifting back to you, really right now, who should be going in and attempting to file? Because I don't think we don't want people to get frustrated, and we don't want people to just misunderstand kind of what the next steps are. So who are those individuals that you would suggest going in right now and filing? Certainly, we sent the email communication to folks last night that we had pre-identified, but I think it would be helpful to just kind of clarify and who exactly we're talking about when we're saying, who should go in to file for PUA.
Yeah, happy to expand upon that, Kyle. Again, I'll go back to my comments from the earlier with the beginning. I would break people up into two populations: individuals who have already filed and individuals who have not yet filed. Kind of like you showed on the department's website. If you have not yet filed a claim for unemployment insurance benefits, you can go into the UI initial claim, and everybody has to start there. You got to start from step one because we have to make a determination of UI eligibility. And so if you have not yet filed, you can go in. You may, even if you were laid off in the end of March, if you were holding off and waiting for information about the program, you can go into the UI initial claim, fill out the information, and you can put your last date of work. It I believe is phrased as last date of separation from employment, but your last day of work. If you're a self-employed individual, what was the day that you had to stop work? For a lot of people, it's probably the day of the governor's executive order asking people to stay at home. It may be the day that the governor issued the closure of your restaurant or your bar or your salon. But your last day of your ability to work. You fill out the initial application, and if you check the box as being self-employed or an independent contractor, then when you submit your initial UI application, it will prompt you right there on the confirmation page. It will say, based on your responses, you may be deemed eligible for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, and you can immediately transition into PUA and file that initial claim and go in and file your back weeks. So for those individuals who have not yet filed, they are able to go in today and complete the application. For the individuals who have already filed a claim, maybe you filed back the week of March 15th or the first week of April. For those individuals, if you were deemed self-employed, we are trying to identify those people and pre-populate most of the information into the PUA program for them. So what we've done is we identified roughly 10,000 people last night, and we already sent them an email. If you have that email, then you can go into the PUA application and file as well. Where I don't want people to get frustrated, and I know there is some frustration about why can't we just all do it at once, and please understand that we're trying to break this off in chunks, so we're not creating a larger backlog for people and prohibiting benefits from getting out as quickly as possible. And we're trying to identify those individuals who may be eligible, and that's an ongoing process. That's an ongoing daily process. You may not be eligible today, and then tomorrow we complete an investigation and now you're eligible. So if you had already filed a UI application and you did not receive an email from the Department of Labor, you may not yet be able to go into the PUA application and file. So for those people, I would say, you can go into the PUA app, you can enter your social security number, your last name, and your date of birth. That's the confirmation you need. If it does not recognize you, that just means that we haven't transitioned you over yet. That doesn't mean you're not going to be eligible. It just means we haven't moved your application in to the PUA system yet. Once we move your application in, which we're trying to do this again, we will be expanding on these people on a daily basis. You will get an email from us based on the email you provided to us on your initial UI claim. As soon as you get that email, you will then be able to go in. And as I mentioned on previous town halls, you will be able to file in real time all the back weeks that you're owed. That way we can get you paid for all of those weeks as quickly as possible. It's not like the regular UI system where you can only file 1 week a day and then you got to wait the next day. The technology is much more real time and allows us to take in all that information much more quickly and process it much more quickly. So again, to try and summarize, if you haven't yet filed, go in, start with UI, go all the way through. You can get all the way through the PUA application. If you had already filed for UI, we sent 10,000 people an email last night. They can go in and file. And for those other individuals that maybe you're not self-employed, but you've been given a monetary denial letter, we are moving you into the program as quickly as we can on a daily basis. And we'll be letting those people know and reaching out to them via email as soon as they're ready.
Great, thank you, Cam. Now I think we'll just start transitioning into some questions that folks have had. So Julie is one of those individuals that had filed weeks ago, and I think that she was, so she says, instead of being denied, I was accepted into the normal unemployment program with no pay benefit. How do I switch to PUA? It won't let me re-enter now. I'm in the system wrong. So I think Julie is one of those individuals that you were talking about. It sounds like Julie hasn't been transitioned over. Does that sound right to you?
Potentially, yes. If Julie, if you haven't received an email yet, then it depends on some of the factors, right? So Julie, if you're self-employed and you haven't received an email yet from the department, that means we likely weren't able to pre-identify you as a self-employed individual, and we're looking to expand upon our systems and move you over, and we'll be emailing you as soon as we're able to move you into PUA. If you're not a self-employed individual, if you filed for regular UI and you were denied simply because you weren't monetarily eligible, in that instance, we are working as quickly as we can to identify those individuals. It's not as readily easy to identify them because we can't have you check a box of yes, I'm self-employed. If we let you check that box, we can easily go in the back end and pull those people and identify them. For someone who is not self-employed but also not monetarily eligible, we have to find those individuals, separate the ones that are still being investigated, and then take the ones that aren't being investigated and move them into the system and then notify them of their eligibility. So if Julie, if you are self-employed or not, if you haven't received an email yet from the department, hold tight, and over the next day or so, we're going to be moving these people into the program and be looking for an email from the department.
Great, thank you, Cam. Next question is really about, I know we had a lot of questions coming in about the tax information that folks needed to provide. So Todd asks, I was able to file for PUA, so that's great, Todd. And I received a message that I needed to upload my 2019 tax information within 21 days. And it sounds like Todd is asking, it sounds like the IRS deadline for filing was extended to July 15th. So he's one of those individuals that doesn't yet have his tax returns. So I think what is an instance, what should Todd do, and what should others that don't yet have their 2019 tax returns do? And then what will they do once they receive their tax returns, whether it's in a week or 2 weeks or whatever that may be?
Yep. So as we mentioned on previous town halls, we currently, because we don't have the wage information in our system for self-employed individuals, independent contractors, etc., we can't calculate a monetary determination for them. And so we need these individuals to self-attest to the department what their wages are. And the only way that we can easily do that, quickly do that, is through your tax returns. So because this is a federal program and we are just the administrators of it, USDOL is requiring the PUA program to base your weekly benefit amount on your calendar year 2019 wages. And that's what we have you report in the application, are your 2019 wages. And again, the quickest way to validate that is through what you reported to the state and federal tax departments as what your wages earned were as an individual. So understanding that the tax filing was pushed back to July, and understanding that this started before April 15th, before the normal tax filing deadline, a lot of individuals may not have filed their taxes to date. And so we're approaching that by, if you have not yet filed your taxes, then we can't validate your wages at this time. So you're going to be eligible for the minimum amount. In the PUA program, unlike regular UI, there's a minimum amount for full-time self-employed people. And for the first quarter, it was $190, and for the second quarter, it's set at $191. So for people who have not yet filed their taxes, their tax returns, they will be eligible for the minimum. Plus, keep in mind, plus the additional $600, the additional $600 federal benefit. So your minimum PUA benefit may be $191, but you will get the additional $600 on top of that. So we asked the question on the PUA application, the initial application, have you filed your 2019 taxes, yes or no? If you have filed them, then we need you to upload your tax return documents so we can validate that the wages you reported to us match the wages that you've reported to the tax department. So if you have not yet filed, you would say, no, I have not yet filed my 2019 tax return, and we will move you forward and you will get the minimum. If you click yes to that question, I have filed my 2019 taxes, then you have 21 days to get that tax return document to us. If you do not get the tax return documents to us within 21 days, then you will then be eligible for the minimum amount until you upload those tax return documents. So it's essentially, you're eligible for the minimum until you file your taxes. When you file your taxes, you upload those to us, and then we will go by the wages that you have self-attested, which may make you eligible for higher than the minimum, up to the maximum of $513. So that's where we're at. There is if you have filed, you need to upload them, and you can click yes to that question for validation. If you haven't filed, then you will be eligible for the minimum until you file, keeping in mind that we will be able to retroactively adjust your benefit amount if you file. Let's say you file in May or June, you can then come back to us, upload that documentation, and we'll be able to adjust your benefit amount accordingly. And if it goes up, we'll be able to provide you retroactive to the date of separation.
That's great. Thanks, Cam. The other question, you talk about wages, and I think typically in UI, that's what we really look at. I think a lot of folks that are self-employed may not use the same terms that we do usually for UI. I think it would be helpful just to kind of clarify what information are we looking for on the application. If I'm a self-employed individual, I might not take a salary. What is it that we're looking for, as a part of it? I know we talk about the 2019 tax return. So is it really just what they're reporting on their taxes or on their individual filings? I guess if you could just kind of clarify for the folks that may not use the term wages like we do.
Sure. Yeah, we are looking for how much did you as an individual take home for self-employed people in net income. How much did you, if you own a business or you own multiple businesses, how much did you as an individual claim as net income on your individual tax filing with the tax department? And for those individuals who did not earn any wages, that all the money goes back into their business, or they did not earn a large salary, for those individuals, they will be eligible for, that's what the minimum threshold is for, the minimum PUA amount is for those individuals who did not make any earnings and did not take a salary or take a wage and reported to the tax department 0 wages earned, or after all the deductions, 0 wages earned as income for themselves. That's why there is a minimum PUA amount, because the way we calculate your weekly benefit amount is the same way we calculate the weekly benefit amount under regular unemployment insurance, which is we take your 2 highest wage quarters, we add them together, we divide by 45. And so for someone who, at the end of the year, they don't make a lot of money, they make a few $1,000s each quarter, or like we said, people who make who earn 0 income at the end of the year or for each quarter, your weekly benefit amount would calculate out to be very low, or sometimes calculate out to be 0. And the program obviously is designed to provide you a benefit. And so that's where that's where the minimum PUA amount comes in. So for those individuals with very little personal income coming in from their business, if they report very little personal income or 0 personal income, that's where they would be eligible for the minimum amount.
Great, thank you. I think that's really good clarification for folks. So next question is regarding maybe some mistakes that were, so if someone's filling out the PUA application, they've been able to get into it, and which means they would have already had filled out the initial unemployment application form. And I'm guessing that this is someone who may have filed, weeks ago. if there were, so the person is saying, what if there had been mistakes in filling out the initial unemployment form? Many options in the PUA form were grayed out and not editable. So I guess I know we are still working on some of these logistics, but for this person and for others who may be experiencing the same problem, what's the best suggestion right now, and what can we kind of tell them going forward to expect as well?
Sure. So this is one of the things we have run into, people who are looking to go back and edit the information that is provided. And this is where, as we continue to move forward, it is kind of an iterative process as we're building this system, because the priority number one was to get a system up so people can file. They can start to file their weekly claims, and that way we can start to get benefits to people. Priority number one, from the governor all the way down, has been, let's get these people through. We know the frustration has been from the beginning. They can't even get through. We're sitting here waiting. We don't have a program that we can go into, and so priority number one was get a system up to allow people to start to file and allow payments to start getting out the door. And so now that we've done that, again, system has been up just since yesterday, we're shifting into that focus. How do we allow people to go in and now adjust or amend what they've reported? It is slightly difficult, though, because we have to capture what is reported on the initial application. Because again, keep in mind, everybody, you're self-attesting that what you're providing to us is true and accurate. That doesn't mean you can't make a mistake. We understand that. But we can't allow people to go back in. You reported a certain number of wages and you didn't like the benefit amount. You think it should be higher, so I want to go back in and adjust my wages. Well, we can't allow people to do that. And I know that's not where the question is very likely coming from. I understand that, but just understand that's why we lock the fields, is because we have to have integrity in the application process, so we know when someone comes in and needs to make an adjustment, we can either have a staff member be aware of that and help them or make the change for them, or we can have a record of it. So that's where we have moved into as far as program rollout, is making these additional features or the additional program infrastructure in place to allow people to go back and amend answers or adjust wages, for example, or adjust employer as necessary. So for the people who may have been deemed monetarily ineligible, for example, we've already seen some of those come through. And Kyle, if I can, let's make sure we include some time. I want to go through some do's and don'ts, if you will, some answers that I want people to be aware of and what they actually mean when they answer yes or no, so people don't trip up. We've already had a few people come through with either an ineligibility determination or a denial or a weekly adjudication on a claim, issue on a claim, because they're answering some questions incorrectly. And that's where we're kind of shifting to now over the next few days, is how do we roll out the additional features of the system to allow them to go and amend answers, or allow them to get in touch with a customer service representative to fix something that they may have incorrectly put on their application. So to answer the question directly, I would say we don't have the feature right now to allow people to go in and amend their information, but we are looking to roll that out, and we're looking to roll out that capability for our staff as well. So when they call us, when they call the PUA line, they can get in touch with a representative who can help amend those questions for them.
Great, thank you. Just kind of going back to what we're asking folks to report to us. For individual, there's had a few questions from individuals who were asking about commission-based. Is that, they're saying that currently we don't have a line for commission. So I guess if you could just address some of the commission-based individuals. I don't know if they're currently in our list of people who maybe we've identified. But if you could, Cam, I'll let you just talk to maybe some information on commission based. And it's certainly, if we If we don't have information right now, I'm sure it's something that we would be able to follow up and provide some more context, after the fact as well. And as in the days and following, I'm sure we can provide some more information.
Yeah, I'll just quickly, Kyle, to that point, we can go back and try to get some more information. I would advise the individuals who work off of commission, go ahead and file. There's nothing that prohibits you from being able to file your initial UI claim. It really depends on if they're an employee or not. There are some employees that work off of commission, and those commissions have to be reported to us. I mean, if you even down to tipped individuals, I mean, servers, they are employees of the restaurant, and the restaurant, is required to report the wages that the individual makes, and that is supposed to include tips. But if the individual is not reporting those tips, then they're not being reported to us as wages. So similar with commission, if they're an employee, they should be reported, the wages should be reported, which could include their commissions, and they may be eligible for regular unemployment insurance benefits. If they are a 1099 individual, so they're just a contractor and they're making, a commission off of sales or something to that effect, they can check independent contractor if they're working off a 1099, and they will be able to move forward into the PUA application. Or if they are a self-employed individual, but still working off of commission, same thing. They would file their UI claim. They could go into the PUA claim, and then they would just need to report what they've reported as their personal income, if that's what they're making off of commission, for example. So I would just say, let's start with the regular UI claim, and if they're denied, that's the people that we are subsequently moving into the PUA system as quickly as we can. So there's nothing that hurts the individual from going in and going ahead and filing the claim. If, again, going back to the beginning of the town hall, if they have already filed and they haven't received that email notifying them that you're monetarily ineligible for UI, but now you're ready to go into the PUA application, just be on the lookout for an email from the department, and we'll be notifying them as soon as possible.
Great. A couple things, Cam. I think it would be helpful first, kind of two completely separate questions, but I think they kind of relate to each other. So if you could explain, if someone has been able to get in and apply for PUA, what might be some reasons that they would be deemed ineligible for PUA? And then we're also getting some questions about the relationship between PUA and PPP. And so I understand that PPP is from a business perspective, whereas PUA is more an individual. And so I think a lot of the questions that are coming in are, I think there's even on the tax questions, I think we're getting some questions about like a Schedule C for my business.
Yep.
I think again relates to the PPP loan, because I think there's a misunderstanding of what PUA maybe is, and looking at themselves as self-employed business owners when we're really looking at them as individuals that are needing assistance, not necessarily the business that needs assistance. So I know there was a lot of questions in there, but go ahead.
Yeah, and so I'll try to start possibly in reverse order. Correct. Yep. The PUA program is, as you kind of mentioned, Kyle, it's for the individual. It's not for the business. Whereas, and I will back up, I guess, and apologize. I'm not well versed in the PPP benefits that are available. That's really being administered by the Agency of Commerce and Community Development and the Small Business Association, is my understanding. So I will apologize for that. But to kind of elaborate off what Kyle was saying, my understanding is the PPP benefit or loan is something that could help a business pay their staff and, pay for salary or overhead, et cetera. And I definitely think individuals who own a business, with employees should be investigating that. Whereas the PUA, is going to be for the business owner as an individual, as you mentioned, Kyle. So if you have a business but you have no employees, I don't know how I don't know how the PPP benefit intersects with you if you don't have employees. And so I think that's probably a takeaway for us, Kyle, to try and get some information up. What I can say is if someone is receiving a PPP loan and they are paying themselves a wage or a salary under that loan, they would not be eligible to also receive a PUA benefit. So you cannot double dip in both PUA and receive a salary if you have a PPP loan. You cannot also, we've seen this question come up, if someone is part-time eligible for UI and they're receiving a UI benefit because they were monetarily qualified, but they also have a self-employed business, can they also apply for PUA? And the answer is no. If you're eligible for unemployment insurance, you're not eligible for PUA assistance. And so we are also working to build the cross matches necessary on the back end to validate that individuals are only receiving one or the other. So, if you have questions, I think as a general matter, you can't receive one or the other. So if you're paying yourself under a PPP loan, you shouldn't be applying for a PUA. We ask the questions on the application. Are you eligible for teleworking with pay? Are you receiving some type of sick or paid leave benefit? We also ask on the weekly certification, how many hours are you working, and are you earning any wages? So even if you're a self-employed individual who had your hours cut back, you could be eligible for PUA. If you are, generally working 40 hours, but you've had to cut back to 20 hours. So that's how I would answer that initial question. I know we've been trying to work with our ACCD partners to try and get information on the cross between the PPP and how that intersects. And we were even having conversations this week about that. So we try to get some more information out as quickly as we can. To the first point you were asking, Kyle, the three things I think people probably trip up the most on their application: are you able to telework with pay? And we've had, even to date, I've even taken some phone calls from people who need to go in. They were deemed ineligible because they answered yes to that question. And I've spoken with claimants who said, well, I can telework with pay, yes, but I'm not receiving a pay because, the contract that I had, the business is shut down. So I'm not getting any money. Well, that's really what we're asking is, are you teleworking and are you receiving pay? And we've already taken the note to go back to our vendor and see if we can update that question so people don't trip up in answering it. But that's what we're trying to get to with that question is, are you teleworking and are you receiving pay? Again, going back to the people not being allowed to receive their wage and also receive this federal benefit. So that's a question that's tripping people up. Separately, the other question I would say has really tripped up a lot of people, the able and available question. And we tried to put a little help sign on the question to say, are you able and available to work? And some people are answering no because, the governor has ordered us to stay at home. Therefore, I can't go out and actually work. Well, you're still able and available. I mean, and we tried to clarify that in the application to say, are you able and available? Don't answer no just because of the executive order. The question is really, are you able to physically work today if you were allowed to go out and conduct your business? And so those are the two questions I think a lot of people are misinterpreting. And again, we got the program just live yesterday, so we're getting this data back in real time. We're seeing what people are responding to. We're seeing where the issues are being created. And those are the two that I think have tripped people up the most, and where I'd advise people to really look at the question, are you teleworking and receiving pay, yes or no? And are you able and available? you don't need to answer no just because you can't actually physically do your, you can't go outside and conduct your business because the governor's ordered you to stay at home. The question is, can you if you were able to?
That's great. Thanks, Cam. With only having about 15 minutes left, I do want to take some time. You had mentioned kind of the do's and don'ts. I know you had just kind of talked to some of the questions that folks are maybe tripping up on. Were those the only questions that you kind of wanted to address, Cam, or were there others that were important kind of do's and don'ts for folks?
Yeah, those two I think were the big ones. Again, I wanted to just make sure those are the questions we're seeing as being problematic. I would ask people, please have your phone, your cell phone, please should be available, to the best of your ability. We have staff that are doing a lot of cold calling, so we can try to adjudicate these problems as quickly as we can. The last thing we want is for people to have an issue on the claim. Again, maybe they just misunderstood a question, and we want to be able to facilitate those claims as quickly as possible. So, we're cold calling people throughout the day. You answered yes to this. Are you really able and available, or did you just misinterpret the question? So we can flip them back to an able status and try to get them paid as quickly as possible. So really, those are the things I wanted to kind of highlight were the two questions. Also, just being available throughout the day, because we do have people picking up the phone and cold calling to adjudicate these problems. Just to remind people that, we just got the program live yesterday. We're continuing to move people in on a daily basis. The program is designed to be very flexible and lightweight to try to get benefits paid to people as quickly as possible. So even if you aren't able to file or get in today, you maybe didn't receive an email from the department, know that we're looking to get everybody processed by the end of this week, early next week, if they've already filed a UI claim. So, please be monitoring your emails for information coming from the department, because we're trying to get all those who have been waiting through the system. And 10,000 yesterday, we're looking to expand upon that, like I said, on a daily basis. So once you're able to get in, the other thing I wanted to highlight, and I imagine a lot of people are probably asking, when will I get paid? When will I get my benefits? Spoke to our finance manager just a little bit ago before jumping on this town hall. We fully expect people to start receiving their benefits by Tuesday. So the people who have already gone in and filed, they're getting their weekly claim in by Tuesday. So 4 business day turnaround, 5 days, 6 days tops is really what we're aiming for. So please be monitoring your email, because as soon as you get in, we're hoping to get you through the program as quickly as possible, get the weekly claim certified as quickly as possible, and get you paid. A few other things just to mention, this has been some questions from our staff. Are you eligible for the additional $600 I mentioned earlier? And just to reiterate again, yes, for individuals in this program, they will be eligible for the additional $600 of federal benefits, and that lasts through the end of July. So I'll turn it back over to you, Kyle. If you see any questions in the chat room, I'm looking through some of the questions I'm getting from staff today in case something pops up.
That's great. I think that's great, because I think it's great for folks to know too that our staff are being able to deal with these questions, and we're still really just trying to make sure that everybody is taken care of. Jennifer, a little while ago, had asked some questions about not being eligible, which we addressed, but I think the second part of her question is worthy of noting. Bringing up, how will we determine a self-employed person has gone back to work? And then another question is about, when the governor reopens my line of work, can I still file weekly claims under PUA? I'm willing to work, but many people do not want to hire or start any jobs yet due to COVID-19. So I think, in particular for self-employed and for these individuals that are probably on the call today, as the governor kind of slowly opens the spigot, as he has said, in this first group and then phasing it back in, there may be some individuals on the call that are already going back to work. So how do we deem that, especially for a self-employed person, like an independent contractor or somebody who's still trying to get jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where, as we begin to open back up, we will be providing information out. For those individuals who own a business, I know a lot of concern has also been on the UI side, the regular UI side. How do we ensure that individuals are going back to work when their business opens up? And so we will, I think, be approaching that kind of cautiously, in the sense that, we know just because we allow people to go back to work doesn't mean everybody is going back to work. And what I would say is, as of right now, the department has waived all work search requirements because we're still under a stay-at-home order. As we move forward and open things back up, we'll be providing more information. Individuals on both PUA and regular UI are expected to accept suitable work. So, if you're an independent contractor and, a contract comes back on, because the underlying employer is back up, if you're refusing to go back to that contract, that employer could notify us as a department and we would have to do an investigation. And if you've refused to go back to suitable work, it could be grounds for denial of benefits. For self-employed individuals, you're required to report hours and wages earned. And so as long as you're reporting those to us, again, going back to the beginning when I mentioned kind of you're used to working 40 hours, maybe you've only gone down to 20 hours, you still are potentially eligible. You just have to report those hours and wages to us because it impacts your benefit amount on a weekly basis. So as we open back up, you're used to working your 40 hours, but now you're working 0. The governor allows businesses to come back online. Then you start, now you're working 10 hours a week. As long as you're reporting that to us and the wages you're earning, you can still be eligible on a week-to-week basis. It just may impact your benefit amount and reduce your benefit amount slightly. When we get to the point of requiring work search again, which I don't expect to be, when the governor starts to open things back up, because I think that will be a stable approach, slow approach. And I'm speaking for myself, not for the administration there. We will be providing more guidance and kind of taking it in lockstep with the governor. So I don't want people to be concerned that when we open back up, everybody's going to lose their benefits. That's not the case. We understand that people are going to need time to get back to full employment, even the self-employed people. So as long as you're reporting the hours you're working and the wages that you're earning, it will reduce your benefit amount slightly, but you will still continue to be eligible. And then when we get to the point of requiring work search again, we'll provide information for self-employed people about exactly what that means. We're not going to expect people who are self-employed, to be out there looking for work as they're getting their business started back up, meaning doing job contacts. So we'll have more information as we ease towards an opening back up of business.
Great, thank you. Just in the last few minutes before we wrap up, I do want to reiterate going to our website for a lot of the great content or a lot of the great information that we have there. Again, that's labor.vermont.gov/PUA. A lot of questions about eligibility. So Airbnb property owners and people who work at churches and substitute teachers and all of these people, I think as Cam had said, and Cam, feel free to jump in, but, I think as Cam has said, going in and filing the initial application, if you haven't already, and then attempting to go through and file for PUA, I think are really the steps, and checking out the the checklist that we have on our website to see if you might be eligible. I think those would be the first steps. And Cam, I'll let you kind of use that as a jumping off point.
Yeah, no, you're right, Kyle. The first step is for everybody, is filing your initial claim. For an individual who, for example, you work for a church, most churches and religious organizations are exempt from reporting to UI. So those are the people where, for example, you may have already filed your claim, you've been denied your monetary eligibility. Those are the people where we're trying to move them into the program as quickly as we can, but we can't readily identify you as self-employed. So those are the people we're moving in on a daily basis. We're able to identify you're ineligible. Let's notify you that you're ineligible for UI because your employer is exempt, and let's move you into PUA. So be monitoring your email because those individuals we're trying to move over as quickly as possible. Same thing potentially with a self-employed, or excuse me, a substitute teacher. Your wages as a teacher are reported to us, but maybe not. Maybe you don't work enough to become monetarily eligible. Similar situation. You've likely been given a monetary denial of UI, and as soon as we're able to continue to target and identify those populations, we'll be notifying them in moving them into the PUA program as quickly as we can.
Great. And Cam, just a couple of quick ones as we wrap up. Cliff is collecting Social Security. Is this taken into consideration? And then David and Virgins is asking, is compensation retroactive from the date stopped or from the filing date? So I think if you can just clarify those couple of things quick.
The Social Security benefits will not be held against you. And the second question, I think I understand it. We will be able to allow retroactive filing to the date the business had to close. So if you're an independent contractor and your contract employer, the day they stopped, the day they told you no more work on the contract, the day that you as a self-employed individual had to stop working, we are allowing all the way back to the week of March 15th. I mean, you need to put the day that you actually stopped working. So even though we're allowing back to March 15th, if your last day of work was April 14th, then that's what you need to put in, because that's as far back as you can go if you were working before then. But we will allow back to the point in time when the governor's executive orders began to close down businesses. And when people get into the PUA application, as we've said from the beginning, the delay in getting us up, the delay in getting you into PUA will not impact your ability to collect the benefits. It's not going to deny you. So you will be able to retroactively file subsequent weeks going back to that point where you had to stop work. Once you get through the PUA application and you're signed up, you'll be able to go in and file your weekly claims similar to how you would under the UI program. And you'll be able to go in and file all those weeks, and you'll be able to do it much more quickly than under the regular UI program. So we'll be able to get you caught up quick and get you paid those retroactive amounts. Same thing real quick, Kyle, on the minimum amount, as we mentioned earlier, the people who you haven't filed your taxes, so you're just getting the minimum amount. Once you file your taxes, you can come back to us, and if we validate those wages and it results in an increased weekly benefit amount, we can then retroactively go back and adjust your weeks accordingly if you're eligible for that increased amount, we go back retroactively pay you for those weeks. So, please, everybody, just because there's a delay, we will be able to get you those benefits back.
Great. Thank you, Cam. I appreciate taking the time. I know we're a little bit over, so I'll just wrap it up here. So again, everybody, thank you again for joining us this afternoon. A lot of questions. We were able to get to a number, but I think we'll continue to kind of look through the questions and try to address those on the content that we'll be adding, whether it's frequently asked questions and other items on our website. So I will look into it. We haven't yet announced what we'll be doing next week for these town halls, but I can definitely foresee us doing more self-employed and PUA focused, broadcasts like this. So keep an eye out at labor.vermont.gov for more information as we kind of go through. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up for this afternoon. And Cam, thank you again for taking the time. And again, as a reminder, this broadcast has been recorded. And folks, again, we thank you and have a great afternoon.